Um, Good morning and welcome to this morning's Changing Places in the Outdoors webinar. My name is Claire McClernon and I'm a project officer here at Outdoor Recreation Northern Ireland. And I want to say a huge thanks to everyone for taking the time to come along today. We have a really good number of people registered, so I'm sure we're going to have a great session today. A bit of housekeeping just to get us started. I just need to make you aware that this webinar is being recorded, and this recording is going to be published on Orkney's website and it may be shared on social media. I would ask you if you can keep your microphones on mute unless invited to speak, and this is just to reduce any background noise and just make the whole thing run a bit smoother. I would also ask if you wouldn't mind turning off your cameras. You're all looking lovely, but once again, it just helps with keeping the whole thing running smoothly. Finally, I would welcome you to use our chat pane to ask any questions that you might have to any of our speakers. You can use this throughout the webinar, and we'll address those questions at a Q&A towards the end of today's webinar. Excuse me. So today's agenda includes a short introduction from me, followed by three wonderful guest speakers. We have Karen Ho, who's the Changing Places Development Officer at Muscular Dystrophy UK. We have Alex Crawford, who's the chairperson of the May Murray Foundation, and Jennifer Parkinson, Environmental Health Manager at Ards and North Down Borough Council. I'm then going to present an overview of a toolkit that will be made available for use by anyone considering developing a changing place in the outdoors. And then we're going to have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So good session ahead of us. First of all, a little bit about Orkney. We're a not-for-profit organisation. Our vision is for a more active and healthy society appreciating the outdoors. We receive strategic funding from both DAERA, NIEA and Sport NI. This piece of work on changing places in the outdoors specifically has been funded through the DAERA Environment Fund. At this stage also, I feel it's very important that I acknowledge the contributions of the Changing Places Consortium and the May Murray Foundation, both today as speakers, but also as just ongoing contributors to this wider body of work that myself and Orkney have been working on, and that has led us to where we are today. I couldn't have done it without you, so thank you. Keeping our organisational vision in mind, it's very clear that more changing places toilets in outdoor settings will enable more people to engage with outdoor experiences. More changing places in the outdoors means days out, even multi-day trips away from home for people with disabilities and their wider circle of family and friends who may otherwise be limited to visiting spaces very close to where they live. The landscape of changing places in Northern Ireland is improving, but we all need to contribute to the growing network of inclusive experiences. Experiences such as enjoying the seaside, experiencing wildlife, walking through woodland, participating in outdoor sports and activities, or simply taking in fresh air and spectacular views. This is all backed up by good research. In May 2021, the Research Institute for Disabled Consumers conducted a survey in the UK to look at changing places toilets insights. And these survey results showed that country parks, open spaces and seaside venues ranked top in the type of places that people would like to see changing places toilets provided. Many thanks to Karen from the Changing Places Consortium for signposting me to that research. And that actually leads me, without further ado, to introduce Karen, who is the Changing Places Development Officer at Muscular Dystrophy UK. And she is going to talk us through the key role of the Changing Places Consortium. So Karen, I'm going to ask you to share your screen and hopefully it takes over from mine here.
That's lovely, thank you. Do just bear with me because I can't multitask. Trying to share and talk is not one of my fortes, so I'm hoping, which you don't now, have sight of the screen. There we go. Can we see that?
That's perfect, Karen. Yep.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk here today. It is a pleasure, an imperative to be able to be part of these conversations, which I'm really proud to be invited, because, to be honest, the whole success of Changing Places is to be involved right from these very early discussions to make sure we can support, educate, guide you in terms of all the necessary steps that do need to be made to help, install Changing Places, and the importance of, what happens once they're installed as well. So it's great to be invited at this early stage. And just a little bit of 2-minute history. Obviously, whilst I manage the Changing Places campaign for muscular dystrophy, as a family, we are equally dependent on Changing Places as well. My son does have muscular dystrophy, as a wheelchair user, so we fully understand the vital importance of obviously accessing Changing Places toilets, so we cannot physically leave the house to go anywhere unless we have knowledge of and plan our routes and days out to make sure we can access the toilet along our day to go out and go about our daily ways. So whilst we have the lived experience, it's also good to be able to manage the programme and campaign as well. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of the Changing Places campaign, just to let you know how it all kind of started. So the campaign first started back in 2006. It's recognised that obviously standard accessible toilets don't meet the need of disabled people, and I'll run through what those differences are for those of you that may not be aware. MD UK, which is us, and PAMIS are the co-chairs of the consortium. Now, PAMIS are our partners up in Scotland that do the same that we do in the UK. So the consortium is made up of quite a few organisations. So it is Muscular Dystrophy Chair in the England. PAMIS is the Scottish version as well, and then we have the Centre for Accessible Environments, who is our technical arm and expertise that offers all the guidance and so forth. And there's an independent gentleman called Martin Jackerman, who's one of the original co-founders right back in 2006. So as a consortium, we are made up of various different people and organisations, but we come together very regularly to obviously consult, share, guide, talk, plan, debate all the various issues that obviously are presented to us as a consortium. So part of the pieces of the work that we did was to fight to get Changing Places into the building standards, into the regulations. This took many years obviously to get this done, and obviously I will touch on some of this as well a bit during the course of the presentation. But our campaign is only as successful due to the fact of the sheer passion and dedication of the campaigners that fight and drive this forwards as well. So they're the ones that have helped influence to make the campaign as successful where it is now. The Changing Places logo is now actually trademarked by us as a charity, so that logo does carry the guarantee that anything that is registered with us does meet those British standards. If it doesn't meet the standards, it doesn't get registered, it doesn't carry the logo. It's as simple as that. But again, I'll progress on obviously what is detailed to obviously meet that registration criteria. So we coordinate again and run the campaign across the whole of UK. And like we say, we register the toilets and feature them on the national map as well. So that's a little bit of an insight in terms of what we do. So that, for those of you that may not know, is a very nice shining example of a Changing Places toilet. So you can see within this there's certain vital pieces of equipment that are essential to aid and support the users. So the main thing is the size. The size is required to be around 12 square metres. Now, the necessary for that volume of size has increased over a few years when Changing Places first started back in the campaign in 2006, when they started at only about 7-8 square metres, because the mindset back then is anything bigger than accessible toilet works. But as things evolved and the consultation work grew, there was that independence and that need that obviously the users need more. So the way the Changing Places equipment has kind of evolved is down to that public consultation and feedback as to what people need. So the size is imperative. It must have a ceiling track and hoist. So obviously that then aids the users to either be hoisted onto the adult size changing bed or onto the toilet. The changing bed, as you can see there against the wall, so that can either be wall mounted or freestanding. The toilet, you can just see in the corner, the toilet does need to be peninsular, which means it needs to be central in the middle of the wall so people can get either side with a wheelchair to transfer. Height adjustable sink. and a few other things in terms of the way the door opens, mirrors, coat hooks and those type of things. But your main specification is these vital pieces of equipment which can aid and support and obviously maintain the dignity of the users. So who needs changing places toilets? So these are the latest statistics which we have, but we know that this has actually probably grown since these I think this is part of the National Statistic Database from about 10 years ago when MenCap used to run the campaign. So at the minute we say there's over 250,000 people, so there's over 250,000 people in the UK are dependent on using these facilities, but we know those figures are much more now. So the type of people that may need to access these, it's not just muscle wasting conditions. There could be people with profound and multiple learning disabilities. There's that hidden disability sector as well, which people have that misconceptions to should they require them and access them. But a lot of people obviously with autism and sensory issues that obviously do need that space, or may obviously need to access it if they are requiring pads or incontinent, they need to change them. But they also need, for sensory issues, they need that peace and the quiet in the space to have some quiet time while they're being changed as well. You've got a various different factor of obviously eclectic conditions, or you've got multiple sclerosis, obviously multi-neuron cerebral palsy. There's no limit to obviously who can access a change in places facility, as well as people that may have head injuries, strokes, war veterans, obviously the elderly. It's not just notoriously for children and families as well. So there's no limit or restrictions as to who can and should use a change in places toilet. So that's something to be mindful of, that you cannot impose any restrictions as to who can access. Just because you can't see the disability doesn't mean to say they can't access it. A lot of people with Crohn's and colitis obviously may need to use the facilities as well. So the reality of life without change in places, as you can see, this is a clear example as to what many people, us included as a family, have to endure. You have to find somewhere where you can undignifiedly change your person or your loved one, either in the back of a car, on a dirty toilet floor. It can be very horrific, some of the things that people have to go through to have to access a toilet, which is basically, your human right and your given right to be able to access a toilet within a few minutes of needing one. But for our change in places users, sometimes they have to travel for hours, sometimes miles, to find one to make sure they can use it. Without a change in place toilet, the reality is, like you say, some of these horrific circumstances, but equally some people have to purposely dehydrate themselves, purposely not drink for 8-10 hours if they can't find a toilet for that length of time. This equally then can result in obviously infections, bladder infections, accidents, embarrassment of obviously not being able to hold your bladder, the pain that creates as well. Some people have to resort as well to one of our main campaigners here that's had to resort in actually having elective surgery to actually manage the situation, because you cannot depend on finding a suitable toilet whenever she leaves the house. So in this day and age, you think when you can put man on the moon, but you can't find an accessible toilet in the grand scheme of things. It's that bigger picture scenario. So getting it right, where to start? The main thing I can't stress the importance of enough is talk to us. If you're having that intention, that desire, you want to install, you don't know where to start, pick up the phone, talk to us, email us. We are here to help. We can help share your thoughts, your concerns. We can guide you through that whole process of where do we start, what do we do. It was good to see like that survey that we actually conducted last year does really help inform where the public want to see change in places, what type of venues and scenarios. But equally, they do come with some dilemmas and challenges and obstacles as well. So that's why we can help listen to your concerns and try and guide you down the route of where the other 1,300 people, 1,300 venues that have installed change in places, obviously where they can do that as well. And consult with your disabled community. This is imperative. Do not make any decisions or take any advice until you've consulted with your disabled community. So whilst you think you may know you're acting in the best interest, unless you can actively consult and hear the thoughts and feedback of your disabled community, who will help influence and guide and probably open up your eyes in terms of things that you may not have thought and considered. Those are your valuable feedback and voice, and they're a very welcome, eager, active voice and community that want to be involved and part of any type of consultation and potential projects that are going forwards. Share your draft plans with us. Once you do get to the stage that you're looking to install, you have a venue in mind and you want to know where to start, then look at showing your draft plan so that we can help guide you through the steps that need to make sure you're following the standards, if you place things appropriately, if you're having any restrictions, if it may be, for example, in a listed building, we recognise there's certain ways that things can't be changed or refurbished, so we do work and compromise on individual cases if there's any reasons why you can't quite meet the standards or you've got restrictions with ceiling heights or listed building features. We're actually quite proud that we actually managed to register the Tower of London, which is the oldest historic building ever to install a change in place. That took 4 years, 4 years of torture, nightmare, debates, challenges, tribunals, discussions on how to get that in there. And we managed to just scrape it through by compromising on a very, very few minor things, but some really creative working with the change in place suppliers on ceiling heights and hoistings and non-slip floors that's still able to look like parquet tiles to keep it in traditional keeping with it being a listed building, and how to place the wall mounted bed to give it a bit more space. But the challenges they had were horrendous, but they were persevering, and we're very proud that we did actually finally register, I think about 2 years ago, in the Tower of London. So I think if they can do it, then, you know, there's ways of working around the obstacles, and we can support you in every step of that way. So it's not just about the listed buildings that you need to consider, and let's say your draft plans, it's also bearing in mind all your access routes. How do they access the venue? It's all very well saying you can get to it, but if there's no wheelchair access, or if it's a bumpy path, or some of the indoor venues that need a lift to get to them, but obviously the lift isn't wide enough to facilitate a wheelchair. It's that bigger picture of looking at, it's not just about the change of place facility itself, how to access it, where's the parking, what's the accessibility like, what's the security like, if it's going to be in an unmanned rural setting, how are you going to prevent security, vandalism, access to open hours? So all of these challenges and concerns we can help manage and guide and support you with, in terms of how all the other hundreds of venues have overcome these obstacles as well. Equally, during the build as well, if you do start the build and you find that you may have to change your plans during, if you come across obstacles, then please, again, just consult with us, have a chat with us so we can help guide you through to make sure that we're keeping you on track to meeting the standards. Sometimes we get so disheartened when, you know, we get a registration land in our inbox and we look at it and we just can't register it, and there's thousands and thousands of pounds have been spent on something that could have been very easily fixed for a simple error that they haven't consulted or hadn't thought of, or hadn't test drive with the disabled community, or they haven't considered, you know, door width or turning space, or some obvious things that we can just, you know, guide you through the whole process. So the whole point of obviously just making the venues fully inclusive, obviously, and being accessible, is to make sure it can be registered and proudly, you know, carry that trademark logo and to be on the national map, so the venue can be opened up and is accessible. And it's that trigger effect then, is obviously if you build it, they will come. It's the power of the purple pound. Obviously the people come, they can stay more, they can spend longer. So it's that whole education awareness which we can help support and guide with as well. So the steps towards there to follow are essential to make sure we can finally get this venue registered. We can get signage in place. The wayfinding is essential. And then equally the importance of following through with servicing, maintaining contracts. It's not much point just installing it, but if it doesn't work, you need to have a contract in place to maintain it and get it working again as soon as possible. So it's important that you do you know, take up the service maintenance warranties, that we can guide you through the list of change in place suppliers that we recommend and that we work with, and they will all kind of, you know, obviously naturally try and obviously recommend the importance of signing up to your service and maintenance contracts, which you do with the servicing of the hoist, and the track and hoist needs to be loader tested every 6 months anyway. So the importance of making things, keeping them working as well. And then it's that training and educating. I say, if you build it, they will come. But if you don't promote it, market it, educate it, understand the importance of it yourself as a community, as an authority, as a venue, if you don't get the bigger picture of how invaluable it is to provide such a thing, how to manage it and maintain it and promote it is that next step, which a lot of people tend to miss out on. Coming to the end now, so as you can see, we have the National Change in Places map. So that's where you can be proud to be featured once you're registered onto the national map. So the map at the minute is on our website and it's currently being upgraded, but there's some really excellent route finding function on there, search functioning, filtering. You can fine tune down to venue type, area type, you can plan a route, you can save a route. There's lots of upgrading and enhancements it's having to do over the next few months as well, but that's your go-to place to recommend, advise and signpost to find out where they all are. If it's not on the map, then we don't know about it and it may not be registered. So a lot of people come across changing places to say, well, it's not on the map. Well, the reason why it's not on the map is either we don't know about it and someone's installed it and not told us, or it doesn't meet the registration criteria. Then it would have to go on to what's classed as an other facility page on the map, where those are the ones that don't quite cut the grade for whatever reason. It can't be registered, but there still is a facility there which may meet some people's needs. Then finally, just a thank you for listening to me. I can talk forever about toilets, but I have been fine-tuned to 15-20 minutes, which I'm happy to take questions. There's contact details there. We have a small team which we are happy to support, and equally we'll talk toilets to you all day long. So we are more than welcome to answer any emails, any questions, any guidance and support you every step of the way. The main thing is just communication, we say, is key. You're going to be doing a great thing if you do look to install, but let's help you get it right and make full advantage of this benefiting the whole community. So thank you for listening, for your time. And I shall hopefully hand back over to Claire, who will do the thing with the screen because I'm not touching it.
Thank you, Karen. Well, I hope I can get it right here too. Thank you, Karen. That was brilliant. Really, really good oversight to the standards that are required to meet the needs of people who use changing places. And that's what we're attempting to translate into the outdoor space and the outdoor context. We'll move on to our next speaker here, who is Alex Crawford, chairperson of the May Murray Foundation in Northern Ireland. So Alex is going to tell us about the lived experience and how changing places toilets in the outdoors can change lives. So Alex, I'm going to try handing over to you now. Do you want to try sharing your screen there?
Yeah, that's great, Claire. Thank you. Can everyone see that, or have I missed the share button?
Not yet.
No, okay, hold on, just try again.
Oh. Yeah, we're seeing your screen. If you've got multiple screens going on, maybe, then you can choose which screen you want to share.
Sorry, I'll just come back. I think I must have hit the wrong one.
You're a busy woman. You've too many tabs open in your brain.
Share window. Let's see. There we go.
Perfect. And if you put it on the presentation mode there, we'll see the full slide.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Can everyone see that? Okay.
Yeah, lovely.
Okay. Apologies, folks. I'm tending to use Zoom instead of Teams, so in a catch-up mode. Okay, so good morning. Really delighted to be here to talk to you about the importance of changing places toilets, and I'd just like to thank Claire and all at Orne for shining the spotlight on this really, really important topic, as Karen has pointed out as well. So I'm Alex and I'm the chairperson and the founder of the May Murray Foundation. So who are we? This little chubby checker is my daughter. She loves it when I put these photographs up. My background is that I set up the charity in 2016 as a result of my own lived experience. This is my daughter Talia, and she has quadriplegic cerebral palsy. She's now actually 22, so this was obviously a long time ago. Talia uses an electric wheelchair to move around. And it was the barriers that we faced as a family and the impact that had on our quality of life led me to setting up a charity to try and address unmet need. So our ethos is all about being solutions focused to how can we include everyone within society. The foundation is named in memory of my mum, May Murray, There's a picture of her there, and she was a very solution-focused person, and she always made sure that Talia was included in anything that we were doing as a family. But obviously when we went outside into other environments, that was very challenging. So as an organisation, we're trying to replicate the ethos that my mother created within our family unit and trying to bring that to wider society. So we're a membership-led organisation, lived experience-led, and we now number over 1,000 families across Northern Ireland. So our vision in a snapshot is to create an inclusive society with true participation for all. So it's about all ages, all abilities or all perceived abilities. And it's really about creating a society where everyone can take part together and recognising one another to be of equal and inseparable value. So everything that we do at the foundation, we take a holistic approach. So much as Karen was saying, you need to be looking at the bigger picture. So we run various events at the minute, some are online, some are in person, but we're always looking at the most complex need within our membership. So, you know, how do people take part? What do they need? What's the infrastructure? What's going to make the experience a stress-free experience? So we run various events. We also have a resource library where we provide equipment and other resources to enable people to take part within society. And I'll touch on that a little bit more later on. And one of our other big aims is to actually create permanent long-term change in environments where people are either excluded or struggle to take part or are disabled by the environment. And two of those environments would be beaches and play parks. So just talking a little bit more about then the beaches and play parks. In 2017, we actually piloted the first inclusive beach in Northern Ireland, and that again was looking at taking a holistic approach to what all needed to be there to enable people to take part in the outdoors. We piloted that model, and this summer we should have 5 beaches across Northern Ireland. We're also in the middle of writing guidance that will help other charities and organisations across the UK learn from our experiences and implement similar models. We've also been engaged with Playboard, the leading charity for play in Northern Ireland, on looking at exclusion in play parks. And we recently produced a study document called Let Me Play, and 500 families across Northern Ireland took part in that study. And I'm going to talk to you about 2 case studies just really to do with beaches and playgrounds, which will give you a bit more of an insight into what is the holistic approach that's needed for families and where does Changing Places toilets sit into this. So just to recap, and as Karen said, it's all about safe, hygienic and dignified toileting. It's something we're very committed to at My Murray Foundation. It's an essential element in all we do. And we have been delivering dignified toileting at all our events and projects since our inception in 2016. So we aim to support venues that already have existing Changing Places toilets, or maybe if it's an outdoor community event, we'll maybe bring our own mobile facility, because that's also now available in Northern Ireland, and it's something to bear in mind that if you are running maybe a one-off one-day event, there are mobile Changing Places toilets available as well, and we certainly use them a lot at My Murray Foundation. We have had, as Karen has mentioned, there's been a couple of situations where it's been really challenging to either deliver a Changing Places toilet on time or within a particular area that maybe has very stringent building control requirements or planning restrictions. But it's not something that we advocate. So we have on 2 of our beach sites added hoists and changing benches for adults and things like shower chairs that wouldn't meet the full accredited Changing Places standard. But that's something on those 2 sites that we're going to be pushing at over the next few years to really try and do everything we can to upgrade those 2 sites. So as I say, it's not something that we would advocate. It's not an option that you should be considering if you're setting out just to, to create dignified toileting for all. You really should be following the model that Karen has talked about. So I suppose one of the things I'd really like you to think about today, and as Karen has said as well, consider, would you yourself lie down on a toilet floor? Is it something that you would consider suitable for a family member? And unfortunately in Northern Ireland, the list on the left-hand side here to this picture, these are environments, everyday environments that we can all go to and presume we're going to be able to access dignified toileting. For many families, this list on the left still means that they're not going to have a dignified experience. It's still going to be a matter on some of these locations for lying down on a toilet floor. And it's just not, it's just not acceptable in this day and age. It's actually just, it's startling even that we're having to have the conversation. It's not something that society generally would accept. If you're going to a community event, you expect there to be toilets. If you're going to an airport, you expect there to be toilets. You don't expect to be having to deal with soiling or having to not drink for a number of hours just to be able to to transfer through an airport, etc. So I really would love everyone today to take that away and just ask themselves, is this something that you would consider suitable for yourself and your own family? And is it something that we should all be pushing as a society to address, because we all have a part to play. So I'm going to move on now and talk about, as I mentioned earlier, that we run both inclusive beaches and we're working on inclusion in play parks as well. But I'd like to try and bring that to reality to you and tell you a couple of stories about families in those two scenarios, just to really bring it to life as to what is the impact when a changing places toilet isn't available, as opposed to when it is actually provided. So the first case study I'm going to tell you about, and I should say that all the pictures here and the names and the details have been changed, but the experiences are absolutely real. So the first case study, we'll talk about Freddie. So Freddie is quadriplegic and he uses a wheelchair. He can't stand up alone or bear his own weight, and he's grown too big to be carried. To move around safely out of his wheelchair, he needs to be hoisted. He's a very clever and sociable boy, but he can't talk, so people who don't know him well assume that he doesn't understand things, and this really makes him angry and frustrated. Freddie loves to play just like any other child. Now, the playground closest to his home, where his friends and neighbours go, it is a smooth surface for his wheelchair to move over easily, but he can't take part in this place. None of the swings, slides or play units are designed for use by children who use wheelchairs. So a little further away is a large playground in a country park, which the park providers have described as an inclusive playground. And Freddie can visit here to watch the animals in the nearby fields. But he can't take part in this playground either, so it's not actually inclusive because it's leaving people out. But he remembers when he was younger, he used to be able to use the swing here. When he was little, his mum could lift him into the specially designed seat which supported his body, but he had no other play choices. And sadly, there's only a standard disabled toilet at this location, which doesn't meet Freddie's needs. So visits have to be short and he has to return home for toileting purposes. Now, if the family drive about 90 minutes, there's a playground which offers Freddie a really valuable play experience, rich in choices and with infrastructure to meet his refresh and refueling needs. The long journey means Freddie can only visit every 6 weeks or so. And this playground has a changing places toilet on site, so Freddie can toilet safely with dignity. He's transferred out of his chair using a sling and a hoist onto a changing bench large enough to lie down comfortably, and Mum is able to adjust the height of the bench to attend to Freddie's personal care and toileting needs without hurting her back. Freddie loves this park. He can access the whole environment, and whilst remaining seated in his chair, he can choose to join other children to spin on the roundabout. He can bounce on the trampoline in his chair, or he can swing independently through the air on the roll-on platform swing. He really loves to feel himself swinging through the air. It's his favourite thing to do here. There's a parachute with ramps up to good wide walkways that a wheelchair can fit on, and dials with handles and ropes and grass points and some fancy electronic bits and pieces that relate the illusion of water and replicate sounds and smells, and they can all be easily accessed. If you use a wheelchair like Freddie, there's also a raised table with knee space for playing with sand and water, and he really enjoys this. So with accessible picnic tables and a disabled toilet to change in places specification, Freddie is able to stay for several hours before starting the long journey home. So as you can see, changing places toilet are an essential ingredient to a great day out, but not just for Freddie. In our recently published study, Let Me Play, a whopping 49% of families indicated that in order to use a play park, a changing places toilet is essential. And that's adults as well, it's not just children. So the second person I'd like to tell you about, we'll call her Isabel. And Isabel's story is all about the beach. So Isabel is 65 years old. She lives at home on the coast with her husband Dan and daughter Mia. Mia is now 35 years old and has learning difficulties and loves the beach. It's her favourite place to be. So the family have been visiting the beach on warm days in the summer for most of their life. However, Mum Isabel was involved in an accident 30 years ago and it left her paralysed from the waist down. So a family day out at the beach might not resemble what most families might think of when they're imagining their family day out at the beach. Isabel, Dan and Mia always visit a beach with car access so they can drive onto the sand. And Mia and her dad would swim in the sea and build sandcastles, and Isabel would watch from the car or transfer onto her manual chair just immediately beside the car door. Isabel's wheelchair doesn't move over the sand, so she must stay in the same spot. They would enjoy a picnic together and make memories. But after a few hours, the family would return home so Isabel could attend to her personal care requirements. 2 years ago, everything changed for Isabel and her family. An inclusive beach was created nearby. An inclusive beach is a beach designed around the needs of everyone within the community, with no one left out. Beach wheelchairs with large wheels that move easily over the sand and float in the water are available to borrow free of charge. There's a changing places toilet on site, which includes a hoist and an adult-sized changing bench. The changing places toilet has plenty of room for a standard wheelchair and a beach wheelchair. So Isabel now has everything she needs. The hoist and the changing bench means Isabel's personal care needs are met in a dignified manner at the beach without having to return home. And transferring from her home chair to her beach chair is easy and safe using the hoist, and again protects Isabel's husband's back from injury. But best of all, Isabel can now have fun on the beach and in the water all day with Mia and Dan. Inclusive events are provided every few weeks, like surfing, and the adapted equipment and the changing places toilet has allowed Isabel to surf for the first time at age 65. And as Isabel and Mia surfed into shore side by side, catching a wave together for the first time, their beaming smiles just said it all. So participation really is priceless, and the provision of changing places toilets is crucial to that, as is participation initiatives and events, things that include all of the community together. This is just a little photograph that I wanted to share with you that some of our members have taken whilst out and about. The bottom one is actually on the top of Benevena, and the one on the right is the Mourne. So these are chairs that we've provided through the loan scheme, and it really just does show that the possibilities are endless, and getting into the outdoors is something that everyone should be enjoying. And as I say, changing places toilets is really central to that. So I'd just like to close with a quote that I feel is really apt to our discussions today. And just remind everyone that for every effect there is a root cause, and we need to find and address the root cause rather than trying to fix the effect, as there's no end to the latter. If we exclude people from society, there are repercussions for mental health and social care generally. Everyone needs to be able to take part and have their basic human needs met, like toileting and participation. So stay solution focused, no more floors, and let's work together to create inclusion. Thank you very much indeed for your time and listening. And like Karen, I'll be staying on and happy to take any questions at all. Thank you.
Alex, thank you so much for that. It's just, you know, those photographs just say it all, and the big smiling faces. It's just the perfect demonstration of why we need to work harder at this, you know, all of us here today. So thank you for sharing your experiences. I'm going to move on now to, we have Jennifer Parkinson, who's the Environmental Health Manager, Health and Wellbeing at Ards and North Down Borough Council. And Jennifer's going to outline a case study for us. Now, there's a bit of a link here between the work that Alex and May Murray Foundation does for their inclusive beaches and the work that Jennifer has been doing at Groomsport Beach. But I will let Jennifer and perhaps Alex as well tell that story. So Jennifer, can I hand over to you at this stage? Just take yourself off mute there as well. That's you now.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting me today. First of all, I'd like to say that I don't pretend to be an expert in this field. That's why we worked with Alex to get the information that we needed to support us. I'm not saying that our development of our facility at Groomsport Beach was perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There's been a lot of work already done, a lot more to do. But what we wanted to show was how something can come about, what the problems can be and how you can get help to resolve them and why it's so worthwhile to do. So my real involvement is part of the community planning process, and all the councils in Northern Ireland are signed up to Age Friendly. And in Ards and North Down, we wanted it to be a great place to live and grow older, an area where everyone, regardless of age or ability, is valued and respected. So thinking ability, we're thinking of people with autism, dementia, physical disabilities, and it's supposed to be inclusive for everyone. And that's what our vision for Ards and North Down is. I love this quote from Emma Thompson: being disabled should not mean being disqualified from having access to every aspect of life. And I think that's something that's fundamental to what May Murray and other foundations are doing in the work that they're doing, and very important that we support that. So a bit of background. In October 2017, there was a notice of motion brought to the council requiring officers to report on the possibility of creating an inclusive beach. And that came off the back of work that Alex was doing behind the scenes, particularly with our quality officer, trying to see if Ards and North Down would help create an inclusive beach, as their vision was to have one in each of the 4 coastal council areas. Working in a council, as anybody knows, with any big organisation, there's lots of people with lots of responsibilities and lots of different roles that need to come together. So with environmental health, that we're responsible for the water quality, our compliance team, where our quality officer was, tourism, who obviously responsible for marketing the area, assets and property services, who were looking after the building, parks, who in our section were responsible for the beach and surrounding area, and community planning, who were trying to knit all this together to work with May Murray to create an inclusive beach. So there was beach selection criteria, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because obviously the main bits of this talk is about the Changing Places facility. But we used this selection criteria to make sure that we had, first of all, a beach with the right water quality, that the council had control over both the water and the sand surface, that we would be able to provide staff on site during the bathing season, that there were toilets and car parking facilities. So having gone through this process and looked at all the sites, possible sites in our area, Groomsport was selected, and you can see from this map that there was a car park, there were toilets, there was access to the beach area, and with agreement of all the organisations and departments involved, it was decided that this was the best option. So we went back to the council with a report in March 2019 and identified Groomsport, and we were given permission to continue to work to make this a reality. So the big thing was getting funding agreed with Sport NI for remodelling the existing toilet block to provide a changing places room, an equipment store for part of the equipment that you've already seen in Alex's presentation, and a ramp down to the beach. Now, the funding bit was obviously, thanks big lottery funding in the background, and restrained by the financial year. So we needed to get moving to make sure that we could get everything through, the plans all drawn up, and then the work carried out within the time frame of the end of March 2019. There were also considerations, could we expand the existing toilet block or not? That would lead into planning, that could possibly delay progress. There were restrictions on the site. So all these things were taken into consideration in the background, but all along we kept in touch with Alex representing May Murray to see how we could progress this and do it the most effective and best changing places facility that we could come up with. And as part of their commitment, the May Murray Foundation agreed to provide the equipment, the necessary staff training, and help basically with everything that we needed to make the beach actually accessible. So for interest, this is the original Groomsport toilet facilities. You can see that there's a small accessible toilet to the front. There is an awful lot of space in the middle, which was the cleaning store, and there was electricity meter box in there, which caused no end of difficulties. And then two pretty standard public toilet facilities that we wanted to upgrade and get a changing places room in. So the facilities had to be upgraded, and as you've already heard from the other speakers, we needed to look at a height adjustable changing table, a hoist. We wanted to also consider changing facilities improved for other users of the site. There was an entrance step into the male and female toilets. We needed to level the external ground to make sure that the access to that was safe, and we needed the equipment storage area to allow actual on-beach visits to take place. So our first draft of the plan looked something like this. We got in our change of places accessible toilet by enlarging the accessible toilet, but you can see if you look at this closely, whilst we thought we were doing a great job putting in baby change areas and we had two larger toilets, in reality, coming in through this door at the bottom right, which is the gents toilets, moving along and then doing a literally 360 spin on your wheelchair to get in was not going to be practical. So we looked at removing the window here and replacing with the door. That would make the accessible toilet more accessible, both in terms of access and also being used by Radar Key 24-hour availability, even when the toilet block itself was locked up for the night. We also talked to Alex about the new store and decided that what we'd ended up with was actually nowhere near big enough to put the equipment that we needed, and another rethink was required. So this is the plan that we came up with. We were actually decided to make use of more space and extend the changing places accessible toilet room so that it wasn't just the minimum requirement, it was actually bigger than that, maximising the space. We made the adjustments to the external WC, as you can see, for an accessible toilet. We doubled the size of the new store, but we still kept the baby changing facilities available in both male and female toilets. There's ambulant accessible cubicles, that's basically toilets that have extra handrails, and there's a large enlarged accessible cubicle in the female toilet. So this was the plan. The only thing that we didn't end up doing was putting the canopy on over the store area, because that did put us over budget, and there was also concerns about antisocial behaviour and loitering under that canopy and potential vandalism from experience in other sites. So that was the only thing that was changed from this plan. The plans were finally agreed and signed off in autumn 2018. The revised building costs were submitted to Sport NI for approval because they were funding the project. We were able to use approved council contractors to do this work because it was existing build. Otherwise, we'd have had to go through the tender process. May Murray Foundation took responsibility for sourcing and providing all the equipment we needed, the training of our staff, and basically were our unpaid consultant throughout the entire process, for which we were very grateful. Our building work was completed on target and within budget by the end of March 2019. An access ramp to the beach was installed, and you'll see some photos of that later on. And the designated disabled car parking facilities on site were enhanced with an agreement for further staff management to make sure that those parking spaces were agreed for equipment hire days so that people could come up and use the spaces close to the toilet block. So this is what it looks like. What you can't see from that angle, the block with the shutter door is mirrored on the other side, recessed back and the other side of the building, and that's the gents' toilets with the front opening accessible toilet. The door that you can see in the middle of the picture closed is to the changing places facility. The door that's open is the entrance to the ladies' toilets from the map, and the roller shutter door is the equipment store. We've got disabled parking spaces made clearly marked right adjacent to the block, and you can see that there's access to allow for both rear opening and side opening vehicles. This was our launch day in August 2019, when we'd got receipt of all the equipment. Thanks to, you recognise Alex and our Sport NI and Big Lottery sponsors, with our mayor at the time. And this was what we hoped would be a marker down to say that we were now open for business, but looking forward to the next season. Picking up on one of the signage on our accessible toilet, not every disability is visible. As a reminder not to be judgmental of people using the facilities, because unfortunately we hear from users to say that they've actually suffered abuse from people accusing them of using toilets that are for disabled and assume that disabled means in a wheelchair, whereas they're actually accessible toilets and for everyone who needs them. So this is the inside of the changing places room in Groomsport. You can see we have the adjustable bed, the privacy screen, the shower, this seat in place, toilet, wash hand basin, and we've also an overhead hoist in place. This photograph is some of the workers from our organisation who were involved in the design and build and supervise the build, and they were delighted to come down and actually see the Changing Places room in operation on the launch day. And I actually included this as well to let you see sort of the size of the space available and how much space there actually is. So extending that extra few feet has made an incredible difference from going from the minimum standard to just maximising whatever space is available. The ramp that I was telling you about is a concrete ramp that leads down to the beach, but one of the reasons we need to have staff management during the season, as you can see, depending on the weather, sand does get blown up onto it. So this part of the staff duties will be to keep this ramp swept clean and clear, and also to lay down some Mobi-Mat to increase the accessibility right down to the water for everyone that's using the specially adapted wheelchairs on site. And here's a picture of two of my colleagues trying out and pushing the wheelchairs along the coastal path, and you can see just in the background the ramp down, rails down onto the beach. It's a lovely spot. It's quite a sheltered beach, an ideal location for families and people of all ages to come and visit. So what were the lessons learned? Well, large organisations may need several representatives in the partnership group, and that's something, as I mentioned, on the list of people's involved, but you do need to agree a clear project lead, and I think that's what we actually struggled with at the beginning, believe it or not, that every department was doing their bit, but nobody really felt that they had direct control or responsibility for taking the lead. So once that's sorted, everything goes a lot easier. Make sure you seek external membership on your group to get expertise and user input. We could not have done this without Alex's input at all. It just would not have resulted in the facility that we have. It would have had the problems that I showed you in the first map, the first plan. So it's very important that you get the opinions of those that know what they're doing, that you listen to their advice and you act on it. As mentioned by my previous speakers, the requirement to consult and communicate if the goalposts move is really important, particularly with your end user representative. They'll help you come up with workarounds and practical solutions. So it's not always possible to take something off a map, put it down and think that your drawing fits because it complies with the minimum standard. Your individual site needs looked at, your individual circumstances need looked at, and things that Alex was able to guide us with regard to the disability parking and how to manage that, how to manage the ramp and so on. That's something that I think would taken us an awful lot longer to come up with, if at all. Don't just comply with the minimum. Try to get the best you can within the constraints of the building design and the budget. And very important to remember that the project doesn't finish with the build. We were stalled because 2020, our planned beach opening was COVID. 21, we had still a continuation of fallout from that and staffing issues. So this year is really going to see our big launch, and we're still working behind the scenes to try and get everything right with regard to signage, marketing, making sure that the beach, inclusive beach is accessible, and that the Changing Places facility are literally put on the map for those that need it. So why should we provide a Changing Places toilet in the first place? My previous presenters have indicated the value of those. I think some lovely quotes here that disability only becomes a tragedy when society fails to provide the things needed to lead one's daily life. Disability is not the problem, the accessibility is the problem. This one rings true for me as well. Work undertaken to address a specific disability often improves experience designed for a much wider group of users. And that was definitely true in our case, because by looking at improving the beach access and toilet facilities for those in wheelchairs, we actually upgraded them for families, for those in buggies, for older people wanting to access, anybody who's a bit unsteady on their feet, even people with sight issues and so on. And I think that that's really what we wanted to do with Age Friendly, Ardson North Down. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. There's no point in us providing a Changing Places facility down at the beach and tell people they can only come and look at it from the parking space area. This is why the equipment part was such an important role to play in our Changing Places and a beach, an inclusive beach. And if you need any further motivation as to why you should think about making your outdoor spaces more accessible, I just want you to look at those smiles. This is what makes everything worthwhile, that these children, young people, adults can be part of society, can have the same pleasures and enjoyment that they as human beings should have, the same access as everybody else has. And by you making a Changing Places facility near your outdoor space is going to be a first step in that process. Thank you very much.
Jennifer, thank you so much. That was just bang on brief. We wanted the warts and all example of overcoming the challenges of developing a Changing Place, and I think you do yourself a disservice in the amount of experience you've just demonstrated in getting to this point where you're about to launch an inclusive beach. I hadn't actually seen any photographs of the beach area or the toilet block, and what's very clear is that you've managed to do an awful lot with very little in terms of space and your constraints. And I just think it's a perfect example of where, you know, if you've got a good head on your shoulders, you're consulting well and engaging well, that, you know, and you know, good design. There's just no excuse that can't be overcome.
Well, I think though the key, Claire, to be fair, is that it's a team. You know, there's a team behind it, and you know, one person on their own can't do it. But in an organisation, you might know the detail, but there will be somebody else that you can find who will. And if you don't have it in house, don't be afraid to ask outside, because certainly our experience has been that you know, Alex, and you know, from talking and listening to Karen, you know, there are organisations out there that are more than willing to give the input that's needed to make it a success.
Okay. Well, look, I've got a couple more slides and then we're into Q&A. I'm gonna, at this stage, even invite people to start putting questions if you have them into the chat pane. Otherwise, you can wait and you can we can do that verbally. But I'll just finish off our session here by sharing my screen and a few final slides. So I'm going to pick up from where Karen left off in her presentation, showing the Changing Places map. You'll find this on the Changing Places Consortium website, and it's just such a fantastic digital facility. It's a huge communication portal where, you know, you if you have a facility in your area, you need to make sure it's registered and on that map, because behind every point on that map, you will find out all the specific details of that particular facility, like opening times or access arrangements and so on. Which is why it is essential that if you have a Changing Places facility, that it is registered with the consortium. At my own last count, well, just this week, there are 58 full standards registered Changing Places in Northern Ireland. I think there may be more that could come through the ranks and be registered. So if you're in the audience and you have one sitting that's not registered, you need to get on that. Many of the facilities that are registered are based in like healthcare, shopping and indoor leisure settings. And, you know, there is an upward trend that appears to be coming through, that's seeing this map becoming denser with pins. And since I've been involved over the last 2 years, just keeping an eye on this sort of thing, I'm certainly seeing a lot more pins on that map, which is fantastic. You know, that trend is hopefully likely to continue. Not least because there has been in Northern Ireland a recent introduction of building regulations that apply to certain types of new buildings, or in some existing buildings where there's going to be a material change of use and so on. But to bring it back to what we're particularly interested in today, and that is looking at changing places in the outdoors and how that improves access to the outdoors. What we've done is had I suppose, I want to say it's a glance, because we haven't audited these spaces for all the whole, you know, the holistic experience that's required to call an outdoor space inclusive. But what we've highlighted here is that these are the locations or the geographical spread in Northern Ireland of where Changing Places do or have the potential to improve engagement with the outdoors. This is unfortunately where the picture becomes a little bit bleaker, because there has been fairly limited change across the past couple of years. It may be that you know, the building regs don't necessarily always apply to an outdoor space, but that should never be an out for any of us in, you know, developing outdoor recreation experiences. You know, we're seeing some council areas that really have no provision at all, despite what research is showing is most in demand, going back to that RIDC research that I showed in earlier slides. So the process of getting all our heads together today and hosting this webinar at Orkney really has led to the development of a toolkit. Now, I also want to emphasize that I certainly am not an expert, or you're not necessarily experts in, you know, accessibility and inclusivity design, but what we do is provide outdoor recreation experiences, and we need to be part of the process of promoting and learning from all of the things we've heard here today and more. We all need to do better, and as part of that shift, you know, we need to be part of that shift towards defaulting to providing an inclusive experience when we're considering our investments. And this inclusive experience should always include a change in place. So this toolkit that we've pulled together, we're outlining 5 key steps that you really do need to consider when you're developing a changing place of the outdoors. It really re-emphasises everything you've heard here today. This has been developed by speaking to Jennifer, to Karen, to Alex and others. And what you'll find within this toolkit really is a whole host of signposts and links to existing useful resources and examples, all in the context of developing your spaces in the outdoors. To emphasise what Jennifer touched on there, it first and foremost outlines the need for your organisation, if you work on behalf of a large delivery body, to appoint a champion who will oversee the installation of a changing place from conception to completion and beyond. They will oversee delivery across multidisciplinary teams, and they will make sure that standards, the changing places consortium standards, are uncompromised. We outline what you need to do to engage with all the right people and the right organisations. This is probably your most important element of the toolkit, and it's again just re-emphasising what's already been said in this webinar. You're effectively co-designing your facility right down to every last detail, and this early and ongoing engagement will make sure that your changing place is a success for your end users. But you yourself will benefit. You'll have undergone a valuable form of promotion for your site by going through those consultative motions. We're inviting you within the toolkit to look at the bigger picture. Obviously, the likes of Groomsport Inclusive Beach is not just about a changing place, it's about everything else that goes on around it. It needs to be seamless integration of provision to make the whole thing a success, and we've pulled together a few things that will help to steer you towards just making sure that you're considering all the right, the range of components that you need to consider as part of the siting of a changing place in order to ensure its success and the success of your whole site. We've provided you with a range of real world examples and scenarios just at a very high level, with a few outlined costs. This is just to help you planning ahead for your facility. Often it's not as difficult or as costly as you might think, and there's a lot of funding support out there at the moment that you should never really, as far as I can see, you shouldn't really be limited by funding. Hopefully that this little guide will give you a steer on how best to approach developing a changing place. And that's me for now. The toolkit will be published on the Orkney website alongside a recording of this webinar as a resource for you to use as a reference should you find it helpful. You should always use the Changing Places Consortium website. Speak to Karen and her colleagues, as a first point of engagement. Before you do anything, pick up the phone or drop them an email. You're going to receive an e-zine following this webinar to direct you to all of this information. So at this stage, I want to reiterate my thanks to our funders, DAERA and their Environment Fund, and to my 3 speakers. But we're going to do a bit of a Q&A here to give you all an opportunity to ask any questions, and I encourage you not to hold back. If you have any questions at all, please come forward with them, and between all of us we should be able to answer them. Well, I'll go first. I'll start with one. And this, we've got one from Maya. We'll start with Maya.
Hi, Claire. Thank you very much.
Hi, Maya. How are you doing?
So, thank you. It's fantastic to see this. I mean, I know I'd encouraged Orkney to start getting involved, to look at it, and to bid for funding a couple of years ago to take this forward, because there's just so much need out there. And when we're looking at hubs for outdoor recreation, we really do want to look at that potential of having regional coverage, and you know, for places to go for outdoor recreation, and this is so much part of that. Somebody's asking there about funding. Certainly we have funding in the Environment Fund for Changing Places, both for, you know, you could use our scoping study element. I mean, I know sometimes it's challenging with the, you know, only 1 year funding, but even if you think about scoping within a council area or a particular site in 1 year, and then getting your planning permission as part of that scoping, and then looking at the potential of a build the next year, that's one option. Also, I think there's probably the option for funding within the DAERA TRIPC funding. I'm only guessing, but that would be my gut feeling. And then the Sport NI funding. So that those might be things, Claire, maybe to add, you know, a few pointers to. Are we planning to put these locations onto Outmore NI and Walk NI, and then a hyperlink through, so that when somebody's going to look at where might we go for a day, it might be well, are the facilities I need there as well? Yeah.
Yes, Maya, I was able to confirm that with our team last week. So Outmore NI is a newly launched or a relaunched resource for outdoor recreation information for the whole of Northern Ireland. It's absolutely brilliant. I had no part in the development of it, but I got to see it last week when it was launched, and it allows you to filter all sorts of amenities and facilities and walks and right down to the level where we could, and we plan to include Changing Places facilities on that. That will reflect, now the Changing Places Consortium, we will always still look to them as the, you know, they are the #1 source of that information that will feed into our map, but we will keep abreast of that, and we'll keep in touch with Karen and colleagues to make sure our Outmore map is kept up to date with that information.
Yeah, great. Lovely, thank you.
Kerry is here. Kerry from our marketing team, who was involved in Outmore NI, and I don't know if you've anything to add to that, Kerry, but I want to give you the opportunity to, if you have.
I think you covered it there, Claire, but no, definitely we hope to add the information on, just, you know, as a filter, so it's there if people need to look for it, and yeah, it just makes it more inclusive for people to check out those outdoor trails and places.
Yeah. And perhaps, you know, we need to go a bit further than just the Changing Places. I don't think we've included like inclusive beach sites and the details of those, for example. So maybe that's something we can touch base with Alex about in future, about even just, you know, signposting to the right sources of information for those.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great, actually, Claire, because I think there was an old site previously operated by someone else that was trying to capture a lot of beach information, but I think it lacked funding and it closed down. So it would be really useful if we could. We struggle actually with getting the information out, so that sounds fantastic. Yeah, would love to be involved.
Brilliant. We had a question from Inga Bach. Hi Inga, if you're still there. And I know that Karen has answered your question, but I think this is quite relevant because, you know, we're talking here in the context of Northern Ireland, and, you know, we've obviously received funding from, you know, Northern Irish sources to pursue this sort of piece of research. Is there a website for Ireland? So for, you know, we're complicated here in that, you know, the Republic of Ireland is represented by a different government and so on. Karen, is that something you're able to expand on? Do you know much about what's happening in the Republic of Ireland in terms of a consortium or representation?
Hi. To be honest, no, we don't have much engagement at all with the Republic of Ireland. We know we do try and reach out, but we don't seem to have a single either identity or, you know, governing body or board that will just want to kind of engage, and you know they do kind of do their own thing. I mean the olive branch is open, but you know as you say it's just a bit more of a different scenario, isn't it? But from our point of view, you know there's not that restriction, but we're always open to conversations if we can get in with the right audience, I guess.
Yeah. Inga, I see you have, do you have your hand up there? Do you want to come on and speak?
I do indeed. Yes, I do indeed.
Hi.
Karen, thanks for that information. I actually went and just Googled it there. Dr. Google tells me there is a Changing Places Ireland. But again, I noticed we have a new beach, Changing Places, and in Portneuf-Nairn, and I noticed that they weren't up on the Irish side either. So I've just got involved with them on trails and all accessible trails, and we were saying we definitely have to rectify that. So I will engage in that, and I'm the same as you. I don't think there should be any barrier to anyone having information of these things up. So wherever we're going with this, I will make sure and be in touch with you as well, so that you can have it on your website as well. Right. And the same for Outmore. So, you know, whoever I think has maps that are available to people, regardless of where they're coming from, the more information is there for people, the better these facilities get used and the more people can get out.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Inga. We have Pat with his hand up. His or her, I'm not sure. Pat, do you have a question? If you do, you're on mute and I can't see you.
Yeah,
oh, there you go.
Am I unmuted? No.
You're coming on and off mute. Try again. Oh. You're on mute there, Pat. Oh, there you go. Try it now.
You can hear me now, can you?
Yep, that's you now.
Oh, you can. Yeah, that's me. One of the things that I'm here in Donegal, and it is in terms of the nationally, there isn't a signpost of facilities or availabilities of disability-friendly beaches or outdoor pursuits. But when you go into the local councils, they would have some of it, but it would not be up to date. So what you have to do is search and rescue. You'd have to go and be very inquisitive as to see where is disability accessible. And so what you have to do is you go and you find out. It's as simple as that. And I suppose for people with disabilities, you have to sort of know who to contact. And it is really for people with disabilities, you have to sort of go and go for it. As in, it's not there waiting for you. So you have to go and look for it. I know with Inga, I'm involved with them and the Irish Independent Living Movement, and that's what we're hoping to do, is trying to make it more accessible. And it's fantastic hearing all the ideas of accessibility, and that's what we want to do. We want to treat disability as normal. So what? And so it's just to make it's the services that need to be improved, not the disability. So it's just in the Republic, there is services, but you have to go looking for them. It's not just there at your doorstep. In the north, it's great there. Lovely to see.
Maybe we're doing something right in the north.
That's my totally best. It's a great change. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you for that contribution. And you know, it's clear. I think there is a Changing Places map for the south of Ireland, and it's quite clear that you are behind even Northern Ireland at the moment. But I do think it's only a matter of time, especially when you start to see things on maps and you can quite literally see where the gaps in provision are. And you know, if you're involved in any groups or movements that you have any influence over, you know, absolutely keep in touch with us, or any of the rest of us. I'm sure would be more than happy to help you with your campaign as much as we can.
Correct. So I am involved with 3 different organisations, and one of them is outdoor recreation for just Donegal. So that's first on the priority.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
Because the other ones are disability organisations.
Very good.
But finally, if people don't ask, they don't get, and that's the thing. For anybody, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Pat, have you been engaging with the Donegal Outdoor Recreation Strategy project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, I have. And you see, for me, it's great because I'm familiar with outdoor recreation in Northern Ireland. I'm able to compare contrast. And what ironically, I'm trying to do, because myself and John, who's blind, we want disability accessibility in Donegal as the exact same as other people with who go on their daily walks or their daily outdoor activities. So yeah, with that, it's an opportunity, and rather than us sort of wanting somebody else to promote us, I want us to promote us.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Pat. That's great. We have a question or a hand up from Robert Hayburn.
Yes, thanks, Claire. And I just want to thank all those who made a presentation this morning. It's very, very interesting and good to see the good work that has been going on, and the funding that we gave to Sport NI made its way through to a wonderful facility. And I think on the basis of the enthusiasm that we've seen this morning for this, we would want to see that replicated across the country. I just haven't a question as such. I just wanted to highlight for you that the Department for Communities has now completed its work on producing a new strategy for sport and physical activity. And that's been launched by the Minister, so it's a live strategic document. And I just wanted to let folks know that this kind of work that you're doing is provided for and underpinned by this new strategy that we've co-designed with our colleagues in other departments and with colleagues in councils and a wide number of other partners. And we're about a lifelong involvement in sport and physical activity that will deliver an active, healthy, resilient and inclusive society which recognises and values both participation and excellence. So that's, as you guess, the vision for the new strategy. But I just wanted to highlight, in the context of all that we have heard this morning, we have 6 themes, and included in those themes, obviously you'll not be surprised that the first one, and these are not prioritised in any way, but the first one we come to is recovering from the impact of the pandemic. And that's about, recreating the accessible channels to all the activities, but it's also about building people's confidence to be involved and engaged again. And there's a lot of work to be done there over the next 2 or 3 years. But we're also about promoting participation, inclusion and community engagement. And that really is what we've been hearing about this morning. And to do that, then the other theme that connects with those other 2 is about providing inclusive shared spaces and places. So I just wanted to let you know that strategically we have thought about these things. We have listened to what the community has been saying. We were speaking to over 200 different groups, including those with disabilities, autism, and sensory difficulties, learning and intellectual difficulties. And there's a very strong message coming our way into government, that it's not just enough to say that we're building participation, but it has to be participation for everybody. It has to be truly inclusive. And so we're listening to that. And the 2 bits of work that we're now involved in is about establishing a delivery action plan that will actually implement the strategy. And then also creating those digital data sources all linked up so that we can tell the story of the implementation as it happens, not with a lag time of 6 months or a year. We want to try and get ourselves connected to all the rich sources of information so that we can let not just the Northern Ireland public know, but my senior colleagues in the department and in other departments, and also our politicians, the work that needs to happen, but also the work that is happening and is making a difference. So thank you for allowing me that we update from DFC perspective. Thank you.
No, thank you, Robert. That's very useful. Thank you. Have we got anybody else wanting to ask a question or contribute or have any final thoughts?
Just one final, sorry, Pat here.
Hi,
one
Pat.
final thought is fair play. Hi again. Fair play to Karen. It was very good good to hear, and I know it's your daily living your life, as in you've accessible for your kids or people. It's just well done for having that commitment. It is incredible. So well done to you. And same with your. I think anybody who are parents or who have disabilities, they have to take that extra jump to get where we are today. Because I got MS and epilepsy, and I just get on with it because that's why I'm here. So well done.
Can I thank you, Pat? That's lovely. Thank you so much. And I think, well, from Alex as well, obviously, we're all fully familiar with, what comes with the territory, but equally, we're passionate as parents and as campaigners to make things as right, as accessible, as inclusive as everybody should expect it to be. So, I'm quite honoured, to be honest, to be able to do this from 2 hats, to both live in it and campaigning it, as well as working it and working strategically and operationally, and being able to work with different stakeholders and obviously raise awareness as well. So I'm a very fortunate position to be, but thank you for that acknowledgement as well.
Alex, you have your hand up. Do you want to come in there?
Hi, Claire. Yes, just I hope my internet holds out here. It's been flicking on and off, so sorry if I freeze. No, just on the back of what Robert was saying, that was very helpful to hear about what's happening at DFC. And I just thought that participants today might be interested, and I'd just like to direct them to the statement that was recently made. And I think you have it on your slides, perhaps, Claire, so you're maybe going to be sharing it in the toolkit at a later stage. But the UK Play Safety Forum and the UK Children's Play Policy Forum recently released a statement called Including Disabled Children in Play Provision. And within that statement, it's actually Northern Ireland research, our own research and Play Board's research that was referenced in that document. But importantly, what it's saying is that changing places toilets are an important part of provision to include children in play, and that play park providers really must take a strategic approach to the provision generally across the network. So it's just linking in, as I say again, with what Robert's saying, and that, I think everyone really is now appreciating that changing places toilets are essential, and we really need to think strategically about how we can deliver for the needs of everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, I'm going to draw to a conclusion there, but what we're going to aim to do is have the webinar recording and the toolkit on our website by Thursday, and I believe Kerry will send out an e-zine to everyone who's participated today in that regard, so you can keep an eye out for that. Thank you to all our speakers. I can't thank you enough. I really can't, and thanks for everyone for attending, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.